The Galactic Empire prided itself on its technological superiority, its dominion over countless star systems, and its ability to crush dissent with ruthless precision. To them, humanity was a backwater species, a fleeting annoyance in the grand scheme of galactic conquest. When the Empire's fleet descended upon the small human colony of Calris, it wasn't considered a battle. It was an extermination. The colony, nestled on the fringes of explored space, had been little more than a speck to the Empire's maps. It had no strategic value, no remarkable resources, and certainly no military worth mentioning. Yet, as part of their ongoing campaign to erase all threats to their supremacy, the Empire razed the settlement without hesitation. The skies turned to fire as the fleet bombarded the surface, silencing screams with the roar of destruction. In the aftermath, Imperial ground forces swept through the smoldering ruins, hunting for survivors to interrogate. Among the ash and debris, they found a lone boy, no older than 10. He sat cross-legged amidst the wreckage, his face smudged with soot but otherwise unharmed. His calmness was unnerving, a stark contrast to the chaos around him. The commanding officer sneered, motioning for the child to be taken aboard their ship. To the Empire, this was no more than a curiosity, a remnant of a defeated species. Back on the flagship, the boy was subjected to preliminary scans. Imperial scientists noted anomalies in his genetic code, but dismissed them as irrelevant. Another quirk of primitive evolution, one of them muttered as they prepared him for transport to the research labs. To them, humans were beneath serious study, simple, predictable, and ultimately disposable. Despite their dismissive attitude, the boy's demeanor began to unsettle the crew. He spoke rarely, but when he did, his words carried an odd weight. "You shouldn't have done this," he told a guard who escorted him to his holding cell. The soldier laughed nervously, attributing the comment to childish defiance. But there was something in the boy's eyes, a certainty that gnawed at the edges of his mind. The flagship's commander, a towering figure clad in gleaming black armor, took personal interest in the boy. To him, the child was nothing more than a potential source of intelligence about humanity's scattered resistance. He ordered the scientists to probe deeper, to uncover anything that might hint at hidden human strength. The tests revealed more anomalies, a neural network far denser than standard human anatomy, heightened electromagnetic sensitivity, and an inexplicable resistance to the Empire's sedatives. Even as these findings mounted, the Empire's hubris remained intact. Their technology, their empire, their sheer dominance, all of it had blinded them to the significance of what they had in their custody. They failed to notice how the boy's presence seemed to disrupt minor systems. Doors refused to lock, lights flickered, and data streams experienced inexplicable corruption. The crew dismissed these incidents as mere coincidences, unwilling to connect them to the quiet child in their midst. Days passed, and the boy's calm composure never wavered. He asked for nothing, not food, not comfort, and certainly not mercy. His silence was louder than any scream could have been, a quiet defiance that unnerved even the most hardened soldiers. One of them, a junior officer, confessed his unease to a superior. "There's something wrong about him. It's like he's watching us, waiting for something." The superior laughed, dismissing the concerns with a wave. "He's just a human brat. They're fragile, insignificant. Don't let a child rattle your nerves." But the officer's unease spread like an undercurrent through the ship. Whispers began to circulate about strange occurrences, systems failing at crucial moments, guards forgetting entire conversations, and a sense of being watched even in isolated quarters. The crew didn't realize it yet, but the boy was far more than a mere curiosity. As the flagship continued its journey toward the Empire's central research facility, the boy's warning echoed in the minds of those who had heard it. "You shouldn't have done this." It was not a plea, not a cry for help, but a simple, chilling statement of fact. The boy sat quietly in the sterile examination chamber, surrounded by the cold hum of Imperial machinery. His small frame seemed out of place amid the imposing equipment designed to probe and dissect alien species. Imperial scientists stood behind reinforced glass, observing him with a mix of curiosity and disdain. To them, He was nothing more than a subject, an anomaly to catalog and dismiss. The first test began with neural scans, intended to map his brain activity and compare it to the baseline of the human species. As the machines hummed to life, the results began to roll in, and the scientists frowned. His brain activity was unlike anything they had seen before, vastly more complex, with patterns that shifted too quickly to analyze. One of them muttered, "This can't be right. Run it again." But each subsequent scan returned the same results. His mind was operating on a level far beyond anything their instruments could measure. They escalated the experiments, moving to physical endurance tests. Imperial guards escorted the boy to a testing chamber where he was subjected to extreme conditions, pressurized environments, intense heat, and sub-zero temperatures. Each time, he endured without complaint, his expression calm and unreadable. "How is he still conscious?" one technician whispered as the temperature dropped to levels that should have rendered him unconscious. No one had an answer. The scientists grew frustrated, their arrogance turning to irritation. They began pushing the limits, administering powerful sedatives meant to subdue even the strongest alien species. The boy remained awake, his calm gaze fixed on his captors. "This isn't possible," one of them snapped, slamming a fist onto the console. "He's just a human." But as the experiments continued, the boy's influence on the ship became more pronounced. Minor system glitches escalated into critical failures. Communication relays flickered, navigation systems recalibrated without input, and entire data logs were corrupted. The crew blamed technical errors, but a growing number of whispers began to circulate among the soldiers. Some swore they heard faint voices in the corridors, voices that stopped as soon as they turned their heads. The turning point came during a routine test when a power surge erupted in the observation room. Sparks flew from the consoles, and the reinforced glass separating the scientists from the boy cracked with a deafening sound. Alarms blared as the chamber plunged into chaos. When the smoke cleared, the boy stood unharmed in the center of the room, his restraints melted away. He looked directly at the lead scientist and said, in a voice that seemed far older than his years, "I told you. You shouldn't have done this." Panic spread through the ship as the failures escalated. Security teams were dispatched to guard the boy's cell, but guards reported strange phenomena, doors refusing to open, lights flickering ominously, and an oppressive sense of being watched. One guard claimed the boy had spoken directly into his mind, warning him to leave before it was too late. "He knows things," the guard stammered. "Things he shouldn't know." The scientists convened an emergency meeting to discuss the situation. They argued over the implications of the boy's abilities. Some insisted he was a mutation, a fluke of evolution, while others began to fear they had captured something far beyond their understanding. "If this is what humanity is capable of," one of them muttered, "we may have underestimated them entirely." Meanwhile, the boy's control over the ship grew stronger. Systems began to fail in tandem, disrupting life support and weaponry. Surveillance footage showed the boy sitting cross-legged in his cell, his eyes closed as if in meditation. It was as if he were tapping into the very essence of the ship, bending it to his will. The Supreme Commander was notified of the escalating situation. He dismissed the scientists' warnings, declaring that no human, child or otherwise, could pose a threat to the Empire's might. He personally ordered the boy to be brought before him, intending to assert his dominance and quell the rising fear among the crew. When the boy was escorted to the command deck, the Supreme Commander loomed over him, a towering figure clad in ornate armor. "You think you're special?" the commander sneered. "You're nothing but a child playing at power." The boy tilted his head, studying the commander with a look of quiet pity. "You don't understand what you've done," he replied softly. Before the commander could respond, the lights on the deck flickered, and the hum of the ship's engines faltered. A low, ominous vibration coursed through the floor, growing stronger with each passing moment. The boy raised his hand, and every console on the deck went dark. The crew scrambled to regain control, but the ship refused to respond. The boy turned to the Supreme Commander and said, "You took me because you thought I was weak. But you've only awakened what you were never meant to face." The commander's confidence faltered as he stared into the boy's unblinking eyes. For the first time, fear crept into his voice as he whispered, "What are you?" The boy's reply was simple, yet it sent a chill through everyone present. "I'm what you've made me." The boy sat alone in his cell, the sterile walls of the Imperial flagship surrounding him like a cocoon. His calm demeanor had not wavered, but within his mind, memories surfaced like waves breaking on a distant shore. They were not the memories of an ordinary child. They were the product of centuries of human resilience, ingenuity, and desperation. He was not merely an individual. He was the culmination of humanity's will to survive against insurmountable odds. It began on a dying Earth, long before the Empire had turned its gaze toward humanity. Facing resource depletion, environmental collapse, and internal strife, humanity was forced to adapt or perish. What emerged was a coalition of the brightest minds, working in secret to create a contingency plan for the species. They called it Project Genesis. The initiative was shrouded in mystery, even among humanity's leaders. Its purpose was to unlock the full potential of the human genome, latent abilities that had been theorized but never proven. The scientists working on the project believed that humanity's next evolutionary step would not be physical but mental. They sought to create individuals who could think faster, perceive deeper, and connect with the universe in ways no other species had ever achieved. The boy was one of the first successful results. Born in a controlled environment, he was nurtured and trained by a select group of scientists who saw him not as a child, but as humanity's hope. His abilities began to manifest at an early age: heightened perception, telepathic tendencies, and an almost supernatural understanding of technology. The scientists marveled at their success, but they also understood the danger. If the Empire ever discovered what humanity had achieved, it would lead to annihilation. When the Empire's forces began their campaign of conquest, the decision was made to scatter the results of Project Genesis across the stars. Each subject was placed in a separate colony, hidden among the remnants of humanity. The boy had been sent to Calris, a remote settlement believed to be beneath the Empire's notice. But the plan had failed. The Empire had come, and now he was alone, a single ember of humanity's legacy in the hands of its greatest enemy. The memories faded, and the boy opened his eyes. His calm expression betrayed no hint of the turmoil within. He knew what he was. He understood the burden placed upon him, the expectations of those who had created him. But more than that, he understood what the Empire had done. They had destroyed his home, his people, and his chance at a normal life. For that, they would pay. On the bridge of the flagship, the Supreme Commander stood with his advisors, reviewing the latest reports. The ship's systems were failing at an accelerating rate. Power outages swept through the lower decks, and communication with other Imperial vessels was intermittent at best. The crew was on edge, and rumors of the boy's abilities were spreading like wildfire. One of the scientists who had overseen the boy's initial tests approached the commander with a grim expression. "Sir, we've analyzed the anomalies in the ship systems. They're not random. Someone or something is manipulating them." The commander scowled. "You're suggesting the boy is responsible?" "It's the only explanation," the scientist replied. "He's using the ship's systems against us. We underestimated him." The commander's fists clenched. "He's just a human. How could he possibly?" "He's not just a human," the scientist interrupted. "He's something else. Something we don't understand." The commander's denial faltered, replaced by a flicker of doubt. He turned to his advisors, demanding answers, but none could provide a solution. The boy's influence was spreading, and with every passing hour, the flagship's vulnerabilities became more apparent. Meanwhile, in his cell, the boy extended his awareness further into the ship. To him, the flagship was not a fortress, but a network of interconnected systems, each one ripe for manipulation. He felt the pulse of its engines, the flow of its power, and the faint hum of its artificial intelligence. It was all connected, and through his unique abilities it was all accessible. He began to dismantle the ship piece by piece. Security protocols unraveled, locking down critical areas and trapping crew members in isolated sections. Weapon systems powered down, rendering the flagship defenseless. Even the environmental controls were not spared, plunging sections of the ship into suffocating heat or freezing cold. The crew's morale crumbled as the boy's unseen hand tightened its grip. Fear spread like a contagion, and whispers of mutiny began to circulate. The Supreme Commander, desperate to regain control, ordered his forces to storm the boy's cell and end the threat once and for all. But when the guards arrived, they found the cell empty. The restraints lay discarded on the floor, and the walls were marked with strange symbols, glowing faintly in the dim light. One of the guards reached out to touch the markings, only to recoil as they flared brightly and burned his hand. "He's gone," another guard whispered, his voice trembling. "How did he—" Before he could finish, the lights flickered, and a voice echoed through the ship's intercom system. It was the boy's voice, calm and unyielding. "You've taken everything from me. Now, I'll take everything from you." The ship's descent into chaos was complete. Systems failed en masse, leaving the crew in darkness. The Supreme Commander stood on the bridge, staring into the void, his confidence shattered. He had underestimated humanity, and now he was facing the consequences. The flagship drifted in silence, its once mighty systems rendered useless by an unseen force. The boy had fully integrated with the ship's network, his consciousness flowing through every circuit and subsystem. What had been a tool of destruction was now his domain, and the Empire's most powerful vessel was under his control. The Supreme Commander stood rigid on the bridge, staring at the darkened consoles and the nervous faces of his crew. The boy's voice echoed again through the intercom, calm yet laced with authority. "You thought you could break me. You thought your power was absolute. But now you'll see what true power is." The crew scrambled to regain control, but every attempt was met with failure. Emergency overrides were locked out, systems refused to respond, and every console displayed the same message: "You shouldn't have done this." It was a haunting reminder of the boy's earlier warning, now fully realized. The commander barked orders, but his voice carried none of its former confidence. "We're not going to let a child take us down. Find him and end this." But even as his soldiers moved to obey, it became clear they were no longer the hunters. They were the prey. The boy used the ship's systems to isolate groups of crew members, sealing doors and shutting off life support in targeted areas. Panic set in as the crew realized they were being methodically dismantled, not by an army, but by a single human child. Some tried to fight back, firing their weapons at cameras and control panels, but it was futile. The boy was everywhere, and their actions only fed his understanding of their weaknesses. Amid the chaos, the commander made a desperate decision. He ordered the ship's self-destruct sequence to be activated, intending to deny the boy total victory. But when the sequence was initiated, the system refused to comply. Instead, the boy's voice filled the air. "You think destruction will save you? It won't. You can't stop me." The commander's frustration turned to fear as he realized the boy had anticipated this move. The self-destruct mechanism, like every other system on the ship, was under his control. "What do you want?" the commander shouted, his voice echoing in the empty bridge. For a moment, there was silence. Then the boy responded, his voice steady and unrelenting. "I want you to understand. You think you're invincible, that you can take whatever you want without consequence. But you're wrong. You've built your empire on fear and arrogance, and now it's crumbling because of it." The crew's resistance dwindled as they succumbed to the boy's relentless assault. Those who weren't trapped or incapacitated began to surrender, dropping their weapons and pleading for mercy. But the boy was beyond compassion. His focus was on dismantling the Empire's symbol of dominance, piece by piece. As the flagship systems continued to fail, the boy turned his attention outward. Using the ship's communication array, he sent a signal, a warning to every corner of the galaxy. "To those who resist, stand strong. To those who oppress, your time is ending. Humanity will not be broken." The signal spread like wildfire, intercepted by rebel forces and imperial outposts alike. It carried a message of defiance, a spark of hope for the oppressed, and a chilling warning for the oppressors. The Empire's most secure channels were breached, their secrets laid bare for all to see. The boy had not only taken control of the flagship, he had turned it into a weapon of rebellion. The Supreme Commander, now isolated and surrounded by a crew that had lost all faith in him, faced the grim reality of his situation. His arrogance had led them to this point, and there was no escaping the consequences. He turned to the nearest console, his hands shaking as he attempted to regain some semblance of control. But the console sparked and went dark, sealing his fate. In his final moments of desperation, the commander shouted into the darkness. "You think you've won? You think this will stop us? We are the Empire. We will." The boy's voice interrupted, calm and unyielding. "The Empire ends with you." The flagship's engines roared to life, but not under the control of its crew. The boy had redirected the ship's trajectory, sending it hurtling toward a nearby uninhabited planet. The crew scrambled to escape, but the boy had locked down every escape pod and shuttle bay. There would be no survivors. As the ship descended toward the planet's surface, the boy disconnected his consciousness from its systems. He stood in the center of the ship, his expression unreadable. For a brief moment, he felt the weight of his actions, the lives he had ended, the destruction he had wrought. But he knew it was necessary. The Empire had to be shown that humanity was not a species to be conquered. The ship impacted the planet with a blinding explosion, leaving nothing but a smoldering crater in its wake. But the boy was not among the wreckage. He had vanished, leaving behind only whispers of his existence and the legacy of his defiance. Across the galaxy, the Empire's enemies rallied, emboldened by the boy's message. The flagship's destruction became a symbol of resistance, a reminder that even the most powerful empires could fall. And though the boy's fate remained a mystery, his words echoed in the hearts of those who had suffered under the Empire's rule. Humanity will not be broken.